This is August 10th, 2016. It's about a friend I've never met. During the MK MMA class, we needed to find and began a mastermind. I met Dan Linkert in the Alliance part of the site. We began to work together on our DMP. We worked and shared ideas, and at some point, I stopped seeing him as a classmate, but as a friend. And I've never had a friend that I've never met in person. And a desire was born about meeting him. I had no idea where he lived in Canada. I had no idea how. I had no idea when or any of this could happen. I only knew that it would. Well, my family from Germany called and we're coming to New York and we're going to be here in August. We said yes, so I asked Dan if we could come to visit him and his mom before we went to New York. Well, my wife and I drove 13 hours straight to Wilberforce on the 3rd of August this year. Just as we crossed the border, we lost all cell service, yet my wife navigated us there safely. We wound up stopping the car right in front of the house that we had rented for that occasion. And Dan came walking across the street with his peaceful smile. I shook his hand and hugged him and introduced my wonderful Rafaela. Because I live in the now, present moment, the details I own would be too much to describe that particular encounter. We went across the street to meet John and Mary Barker, who owned the general store and the house that we rented. They gave me the keys that they didn't even know that worked because they don't lock the places up there. It was such a pleasure to be in a house that I felt like being home. Best of all, that was actually the first time in 60 years that I slept in a house that didn't have the doors locked. Wow. Dan and I talked till midnight. Then the next day, we spent the entire day together, walking around his town, meeting interesting people and going to wonderful places. We saw the public library, which he had a part of the building of it. And there was a fascinating librarian there who treated us like dignitaries. Then we went across the street to a Red Cross outpost that's been around since the early 1900s. My wife was in pain and hurting. She had something in her eyes, so we headed out to get her some help. Later that day, we went to the family bakery, which we only had to go across the street to. It took a lot of wonderful pictures and wondered if the peace and the love felt in this place would ever be transferred to an image. His mom is such a delightful lady and showed us around and took us outside where many of her porcelain objects were made by her. We had a late lunch and spent the evening talking some more. In the morning we were packed and on our way to New York with Dan right there at 8 in the morning. The experience of having a friend before I never met him brought me to conclude there are so many wonderful, loving people out there, and no one could possibly count. The main point of my desire, placed in my being and given attention to, brought this entire event to a happy and grateful conclusion. So Dan, thank you for all you are and for all that you've done for myself and my wonderful Rafaela. Good day.